Things Egyptians do every single day, completely unaware they're copying their ancestors. This isn't history class, this is real life. Let's start from the beginning. Birth. I bet the second you heard that word, you pictured a woman lying in a hospital bed. But say that same word to an old woman in Upper Egypt and she pictures something completely different. Because she still thinks like her ancestors. She remembers the original way. This limestone carving is over 2,000 years old. It shows a woman giving birth, not lying down, squatting, supported on both sides by two goddesses. That's not just how ancient Egyptians gave birth. That's how Egyptian women gave birth for thousands of years after this was carved, generation after generation after generation. The same position, the same support, the same ritual, without ever knowing it came from here. The hospital bed is new. The squat is 3,000 years old, and in parts of Egypt, it never stopped. So, from the moment of birth to the first meal, every morning across Egypt, someone is making bread. Not in a factory, not from a machine, by hand, on a flat surface, over a clay oven. This 4,000-year-old tomb model shows Egyptian workers kneading dough, carrying loaves, baking in a domed clay oven. And here's the thing, if you walked into any house in rural Upper Egypt today, you would see this exact scene. Not a recreation nor a tribute, just Tuesday morning. That same rounded clay oven, that same motion, that same bread. 4,000 years. No written recipe passed down. No one explaining where it came from. They just never stopped. Now look at this display case. Those thin sticks laid out in a row, those are 3,000-year-old Kohl applicators. Ancient Egyptian women used them to line their eyes with black coal. The same black powder, same stick, and the same motion. Egyptian women still do this today, not as a beauty trend they picked up somewhere, but as something passed down so naturally nobody thought to question where it came from. But coal wasn't just cosmetic, it was protection. Ancient Egyptians believed the darkened eye warded off illness, infection, and evil. And actually, modern science actually confirmed part of this. The lead compounds in ancient coal had measurable antibacterial properties. They were right, they just didn't know why. And then there's the shape, that winged line extending beyond the eye. What the world now calls the cat eye wasn't a style choice, it was the Eye of Horus, the most powerful protective symbol in ancient Egypt, worn on the face every single day. Millions of women worldwide draw that exact wing every morning, completely unaware they're recreating a 5,000-year-old protective spell. Still, the Eye of Horus didn't just stay on the faces as makeup. It actually exists more than you think, hiding in plain sight. And you must have seen it somewhere. On jewelry, tattoos, maybe hanging in someone's house. Most people call it the evil eye, or the Nazar, and link it to Greece or Turkey. But the belief behind it, that an envious gaze can cause real harm, was first documented in ancient Egypt. Thousands of years before Greece or Turkey existed as we know them, the Eye of Horus was the original shield, carved onto amulets, painted inside coffins, worn on the body, drawn on the face. As this belief spread through trade routes across the Mediterranean, through Phoenicia, through Greece, through the Ottoman Empire, the symbol simplified over centuries. The detailed falcon eye lost its curl, lost its anatomy, became a circle. Turkish glassworkers eventually gave it the round blue form we know today. But that blue, the color ancient Egyptians associated with the Nile, the sky, and divine protection, never changed. Not once, across 3,000 years. So the next time you see that blue eye, on a bracelet, a keychain, or a wall, you're not looking at a Turkish amulet. You're looking at the last surviving echo of an ancient Egyptian protective spell that we all just forgot where it came from. If you think this is the last thing we're still copying, think again. Here's something that anyone who's visited Egypt will tell you. Food in Egypt isn't just food. Some of it is 4,500-year-old symbols of celebration. Every spring, Egyptians do the same thing. They eat salted fish, colored eggs, spring onions, and lettuce. They call it Sham Nessim. Most think it just means smelling the breeze, but it doesn't. The name comes from an ancient Egyptian word, which is Shemu, written in hieroglyphs over 4,700 years ago. It was the name of the harvest season, when the Nile dropped to its lowest and the fields gave everything they had. Shemu passed into Coptic as Shom, then into Arabic as Sham Nessim. The wording changed, but the celebration never did. Around 60 years ago, Egyptians would wake before sunrise on this day, every family in every neighborhood, and walk to the Nile. They'd sit on the banks in their early morning air, eating fessic and onions and eggs together, watching the sun rise over the water. While they don't all go to the Nile anymore, many still go to the gardens and parks, still eating the same food on the same day, every single year. Fessic is salted, fermented gray mullet. Traces of salted fish were found during excavations at Giza, food of the workers who built the pyramids. Actually, Herodotus documented this exact preservation method in Egypt in 440 BC. When it comes to colored eggs, ancient Egyptians decorated eggs as symbols of creation, the cosmic egg from which the sun god emerged at the beginning of the world. Decorated eggs have been found in Egyptian graves dating back to 3,450 BC. And this didn't stay in Egypt. The tradition of decorating eggs for spring spread across the Mediterranean, into Europe, and into the world. So what you know today as Easter eggs all traces back to ancient Egypt. And spring onions and lettuce were offered to the gods as sacred symbols of fertility and rebirth. 4 foods, 1 spring morning, 4,500 years of the same table. But Egyptians don't just inherit how their ancestors celebrated life. They also inherited how they handled death. When someone dies in Egypt today, the body is washed and wrapped in white linen. Not a coffin yet, not a shroud from a store, white linen by hand. That is the exact same thing ancient Egyptians did before mummification. Same material, same color, same purpose. Preserve the body, honor the soul. It crossed from pharaonic Egypt through thousands of years of change. Different religions, different rulers, different worlds, and it never left. But that's not the most extraordinary part. In Egypt, particularly among Christian families, when someone dies, the family gathers. They pray, they mourn, they support each other. On the 3rd day, the priest comes to the home. He blesses water, bread, and parsley. 3 offerings for the soul of the departed. The same 3 offerings ancient Egyptians place inside tombs for the Ka, the life force, so it could eat and drink in the afterlife. And then, 40 days later, the family gathers again. In the church this time, a formal ceremony, a prayer. Most people who practice it have no idea why the number is 40. Here's why. The ancient Egyptian mummification process took 70 days total. 40 of those days were the natron period, when the body was packed in salt and left to dry, for exactly 40 days. The family couldn't bury their loved one until those 40 days passed. They waited, together, in grief. So when an Egyptian Christian family gathers on the 40th day, they are, without knowing it, marking the exact same period their ancestors once waited for a body to be ready for burial. This was just 6 things. How many more do you think are still out there, hiding in daily life, in rituals, in habits, waiting for someone to connect the dots? If you know one, subscribe and put it in the comments.